our members and the wider community to use evidence and careful analysis to think about how they can maximize their social impact with their careers and resources. Please react here on Zoom if you're familiar with effective altruism. For those of you who are not that familiar with EA, I'd like to give a quick background on the movement. With limited time and resources, how can I make the greatest positive impact in this world? This is a question asked by effective altruists, people who embrace effective altruism. Effective altruism is a philosophy and social movement that advocates using evidence and reasoning to figure out the most effective ways to help others as much as possible and take action on that basis. This movement started in 2009 in Oxford, United Kingdom, by a group of people who were driven to do as much good as possible with their lives. This led to them trying to figure out which global problems are most important to solve, which charities are most effective to donate to, and which career paths to enter that are high impact to solve these problems. Since then, EA chapters have been founded in multiple cities and countries around the world, and there are now more than 170 EA chapters globally, spread over 40 countries worldwide. In 2018, three Filipinos from Manila, including one Ateneo graduate, founded Effective Altruism Philippines, the Philippine chapter of the global EA movement. Some Ateneo students then joined the EA Philippines community to attend events, participate in projects, and help organize events. Five of these students were inspired to found EA Blue in 2019 to discuss the concept of EA with more Ateneans. And since then, we've hosted different events and programs regarding effective altruism. We planned this productivity workshop with the goal of maximizing your productivity as an undergraduate. And from this, we hope for you to learn different principles and tools that would fit your lifestyle in order to be an effective student.
Thank you, Isai. As we move on through our workshop, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. He is a 2019 graduate of BS Management Engineering with a minor in Project Management and Theater Arts, and is currently a Transformational Life and Learning Coach and has been certified by the Coach Masters Academy. As a coach, he manifests sustainable change within his clients and aligns them towards their authentic selves. Through an in-depth understanding of how people learn and perform, he aims to develop his clients' ability to self-reflect, enhance their learning agility, and inspire forward action. So once again, everyone, may I introduce to you Chewy Sy.
Okay, hi everyone. Let me just prepare my slides here. So it's good to see you all. I'm seeing a bunch of new faces and some familiar faces that I haven't seen in such a long time. So genuinely want to say that I miss you guys. And uh, just to get the ball rolling, so thank you, Bedo, for that introduction. And let us get started with today's workshop. So today's workshop will be about number one, meaningful and personal productivity. And this will be an overview of habit formation. So to introduce you guys to who I am, as mentioned by Bedo, I won't even go into credentials. So my name is Matthew C, but please call me Chewy. And it's my life's mission to really shift society's perspective on two things. Number one is productivity, and number two is well-being. And I want to do so through one conversation at a time, whether that be on a workshop or maybe a heart-to-heart, or even maybe if we'll have like a future partnership together as client and as coach. So also some affiliations right now. I'm a part-time learning coach under Tula Learning, and I'm also a co-founder of an organization called What Really Matters. And we create space to have conversations, and that space to rediscover who is your authentic self. So without further ado, let us start. So for the tools for today, please just be reminded of a couple of things. We'll be using the annotate feature. I'm sure given school and all, you guys are very familiar with annotate. Number two, we also have a couple of breakout room activities. And lastly, in the chat, we'll be sending over a worksheet. Kindly use this worksheet as a guide No pressure to finish or even answer it during the program. It's kind of something where I hope after the workshop, maybe you can re-review and go through it and um, start a process of creating your habits. So symbols to remember. So first, if you see this beautiful light bulb, it means concept, means something I want you guys to remember. Second is dispenser, which means activity time. And then lastly, if you see the parang messenger thing, means we'll have a short sharing portion. So I will try to make this as interactive as possible. So kindly, so when given the opportunity, feel free to share me your thoughts and what you're learning so far as well. Okay, so a high level overview of what I'll be talking about for today is number one, what are habits? Number two, what makes a good system? Number three, energy and emotion. And lastly, meaningful productivity. So I know most of you guys are coming from a college setting, but actually this talk as a whole, if learned properly, can be taken with you past college. So I do hope that you guys, and it's also my personal goal pala to, I, in the resources, I put there a lot of frameworks, but here in the talk itself, my goal is to equip you guys with a mindset and that understanding of the mindset so that by the point that the talk ends, we're ready to launch into starting creating habits. Okay, so without further ado, I will start by sharing a quote by my favorite author about vulnerability. So I know a lot of people, when you think about productivity, it's a lot about let's get things done. But I see that the journey of vulnerability is also a journey of the journey of creating habits is a journey of vulnerability. And I'd like to welcome you all by saying, welcome to the arena. It's not going to be the easiest of journeys, but the fact that you showed up here today means a lot. And I'm sure it means a lot also for yourselves, the fact that you want to change and create who you'd want to be in the future. So to start things off with our first section of what are habits, I think there's no better place for us to start but by talking about procrastination. So I have one question, and it's a simple question, which is how do you procrastinate? So to get everyone kind of warmed up, I have a quick icebreaker here. So kindly annotate on the screen how you procrastinate. So on the top left, maybe you're the type that when you procrastinate, you just run back to bed and you go sleep. Maybe you're on the upper right, which is chibog time. So you really think about all the food you can eat. Maybe you're at like the bottom right, where you like to all of a sudden your house is you're gonna clean your whole room and you're gonna overhaul the systems in your room, but not get to do the things you need to do. Or maybe lastly, you're maybe like me that goes on a YouTube black hole and the void of arriving at all of a sudden like videos, all of a sudden like maybe a random choreo or of a dance thing or some other topic. Okay, so I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. Feel free to just write it out so I get to know you guys a bit better as well. So I see a lot of people here are falling under the Netflix YouTube gang. Hey, hey, hey. I also see Carl and Pia on the right. Very interesting. Um and a Jake. Okay. Since that's Jake's the last one I saw, Jake, would you care to maybe share maybe your latest experience of and what place did you clean after when you procrastinated?
Um, okay, so the last time I procrastinated was just last night.
Yeah.
So, so actually this morning I took the ALSET, the Ateneo Law School entrance test, and I was kind of reviewing last minute reviews, and I couldn't really do anything. I didn't feel motivated, or I didn't have the energy to review. So what I did was my room was very dirty because I had to look for some cables and other stuff from my cabinet because I moved my PlayStation setup from the other house to my room, and then that I kind of lost track and started fixing my room, and then started fixing my cabinet, and then removed all my clothes, and then put them back in, and you know the usual
Yeah.
procrastination. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And firstly, I just want to congratulate you. I heard that for studying and taking the exam. I'm sure that was a lot for you to take on. And thank you for your honesty as well. How about the rest? I actually what I noticed very interesting is that everyone's kind of in the bottom area. Is there any soul that runs back to bed? Or okay, so um Ase, I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right, but would you care to share like oh maybe your experience of maybe the last time you procrastinated in that style?
The last time I procrastinated was a few hours ago, actually.
Yeah.
I just go back to my bed and I think I'm going to spend like 5 minutes on my bed, just sitting down and resting. And that becomes 10 minutes. And that becomes 20 minutes. And then I fall asleep and then I wake up, it's 4 hours later.
Yeah. Or
So,
sometimes even the next day. Okay, and very, very true. Like multiple people have different ways of procrastinating. So we heard from Jake who cleans his room. We have Ase who goes back to bed. How about someone from the last? Well, with the ones with the answers at least, the bottom left section. Uh, can I hear from maybe Faith? What was that? What was that very interesting YouTube video that you arrived at, or maybe that Netflix show?
Hello, ano, yung latest episode ng Ranking, yung sa Try Guys.
Oh,
Yung,
okay. Yeah.
yung mga trashy na reality TV show. Sobrang guilty pleasure ko yung mga ganun. Kasi trash sila, pero like, entertaining i-consume yung basura.
Yes, yes. Exactly. No, we find ourselves watching videos na sobrang random. Like, maybe we started from a tutorial on how to do a certain math problem. Tapos bigla, here we are with my ear cleaning videos or yung, or other
Oo,
random videos.
tapos alam mo yung aware, conscious ako na ang dami ko pang gagawin, pero nanood pa rin ako.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's a common experience I think a lot of us go through. So I think we have time for like one last person. Would Is there anybody that goes into a fellow Chibog mode? The fellow Pansit Canton at 1 a.m. peeps at the top right. Or maybe that's just me. Okay, how about let's see, Raf. Would you care to share, Raf, about what maybe was that interesting video that you arrived at?
What's up, Chewy?
Hey, Raf.
Sorry, medyo maingay. I'm making coffee right now. Pero, I don't know. It's kind of like a rabbit hole. I think, yeah, last night I started on Ali Abdul's newest
Woo!
video. Then I found myself like watching TikToks that radiate Vine energy. Yung mga ganun.
Yeah.
So it I started from like what 9 p.m. but then I ended at like 1 a.m. So I lost a lot of time.
And I'd like to think that maybe the Ali Abdal was like majority of the time naman.
Somewhat.
Yeah. I super duper admire Ali Abdal so much. He had a couple of like work with me sessions in Zoom, and I think I attended one. We were like 600 people
Yeah, I
doing
did.
Pomodoro
I said,
together.
nice.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you everyone for sharing your answers. And I think one thing I'm noticing in common is how there are different styles definitely to how people procrastinate. And um, people were sharing also different reasons, especially for their procrastination. So, and what I'd like to do, since I noticed there was this commonality of a sense of doing in knowing what they want to be doing, yet doing another thing. I want to start off by really defining what is procrastination, what is this mystical force that really confuses us so badly. And procrastination, two definitions. Firstly, it's derived from ancient Greek, and it's a word called akrasia, which means the state of acting against your better judgment. So there's a part of us that knows, okay, I need to be studying tonight. Yet there's this mystical power that gets us to all of a sudden do YouTube surfing until 1 a.m. in the morning. So if you kind of notice, there's like a one side that knows what to do, and then all of a sudden another side that just doesn't want to do that thing. And if we look at the second, with the modern definition of it, which is like the act of delaying or postponing a task, if we were to try to see the commonalities between these two definitions, there's this sense of I know what I want to do, yet I don't get to do it. And I noticed how because of this understanding of procrastination, it kind of leads us to this one idea that that procrastination is a notion of a lack of willpower or maybe even a lack of self-control. And because we think that, okay, I have this lack of willpower, it results in people kind of thinking, oh, maybe I'm a lazy person, maybe I'm a not hardworking person. And what I wanna, the first point I really wanna make today is that you are not lazy. Procrastination is not laziness, it's fear. And I would love to explain on why it's fear. But before I go into that also, I'm sure many of you guys heard about, or maybe some of you guys heard about the Pomodoro technique. The When we see this one statement of procrastination is not laziness but fear, what I mean by fear is there's this tendency of us as human beings that when we're given something to do, we look at it as a whole. So let's say we have to do a project. And because we look at the project, maybe it seems so daunting that because of this big daunting project, we get scared and we end up procrastinating the task. And and then I would like to illustrate now how a normal procrastination cycle goes so we can better see how it's actually fear and not laziness. So firstly, in the procrastination cycle, we have what we call the trigger, or these are just my own coin terms, the trigger or a stimuli. So it could be the thought of doing your to-do list, or maybe as a student, you wanna study for your midterms at 9 a.m. in the morning. And the moment that it's like 8:59 and you know you want to start studying, all of a sudden there's this feeling like, I don't really want to be doing it. And then that kind of, what happens is because of a stimuli that affects you, the pain centers in your brain react, and all of a sudden you have this stress or anxiety reaction, or maybe just this feeling that you just don't want to be doing what you want to be doing. And then all of a sudden, that pain reaction, that sense of uncomfortability from the anxiety, slowly leads to your body going like, oh, I'm uncomfortable at this very moment. I kind of want to feel comfortable. So all of a sudden you find yourself going to action. Maybe you're eating chips dramatically, or you're opening YouTube and surfing to 1 a.m. And once you finish opening that YouTube video or finishing that chips, you get that feeling of temporary relief. Whether it's, yes, um, that was a good break. Yet, if you guys notice also, even though you're doing something that gives you this temporary relief, there's a sense of knowing the whole time that I should be doing something else, yet I'm not. And so it's weird in the sense that you're feeling a temporary relief from from procrastinating, but at the same time, you're kind of guilt tripping yourself because you know you're supposed to be doing something, but you're not doing it. So at the end, you really feel that sense of relief. And what I find beautiful about the procrastination cycle is that when we properly uncover what the procrastination cycle is, we can actually notice that the procrastination cycle in itself is a habit. It starts from a cue, it activates a craving, which leads you to a routine, and lastly, having that reward. So at this point, I would just like to introduce to you one of our best friends for today's session, which is really the habit cycle. So habit formation, we first ask ourselves, what is a cue? So a cue is anything that can trigger your brain to do something. So you can think about it as maybe it's a certain place. If you think about Katipunan, or if you think about maybe if you hear a certain song, then it reminds you of something. It could also be by people, could be a thought, could be also sounds. So I'd like to give that example of, let's say that you're in a relationship and then you guys have a favorite song. And then sadly, sadly parang you guys broke up. And because you guys broke up, when you hear the song, you can't help but, thinking about my ex-partner. That in itself is a cue. And this cue leads into what I call, or what is called the craving. And the craving is really the heart of the habit cycle. And when you think about the heart of the habit cycle, it's that motivational force that makes the cues and rewards work. So I remember some of you guys sharing a while ago, I think it was Raf, talking about how, or I think it was Jake, that I don't really have the motivation at this moment. And it's really that craving. Like, what are you craving at this moment, and what are you feeling? And because of that craving, it leads you to do certain actions. So we don't crave the habit as a whole. We crave we crave the change that it creates. So as in the example I gave a while ago, uh, if the thought of studying triggers us in some way to feel our pain centers activate, all of a sudden our body's gonna be like, okay, I want some comfort. And then I find myself all of a sudden in my bed, like about to take a 5 minute nap, which I know will become 40 minutes. And then next we have the routine. So these two a while ago, the cue and the craving, you can kind of see these two things as neutral things. So they're things that just serve as stimuli to you on a daily basis. But what's possibly harmful or beneficial about the cue and the craving is the routine. It's the action that you do that can either make this whole habit positive or negative. So once again, the routine is an action response to the craving caused by the cue. So you can think about it like um, it could have the same cue of hearing a specific song. Then you can have a specific craving of um, maybe the song makes you think about having beer and sisig. And then because of that, there's a routine. So do you either think about work? Do you either work out or do you like find and crave the food? And then lastly is the reward. So what is the end goal of the habit? After the craving, after doing the actual, what is this fulfillment that I feel? Or not fulfillment if it's a procrastination. So as you can notice, everything really revolves around the heart of it, which is the reward. So it's noticing the reward, wanting the reward, obtaining the reward, and then having the reward in itself. And at this point of the conversation, I just want to ask you guys one super quick question. Poll time. So we'll be having a quick poll. I just want to see and ask the question, which of these steps in the habit formation do we have most influence over? And I want to hear like what you guys think we have the most influence over. So I'll be releasing the poll now. So very interesting. We have a. It seems like we kind of have a unanimous answer here, but a couple of brave outliers also going to different answers. Kind of looks like a. I was gonna make a math term, but I don't remember the term anymore. So never mind. Okay, so 4 more people to answer the poll. 3 more people. And one last person. Okay. So most of you guys answered routine. A couple of you, the next most were the cue or reward. And lastly, there were people that answered the craving. So very interesting, very interesting. I know it seems like a tricky question. And when I discuss things later, you're going to argue with me that, hey, but it sounds like you can actually influence everything, which is right to an extent. But we have most power over changing our routine. Exactly, the routine. And when we think about the changing of the routine, we go back to what we associate procrastination to, which is this idea of I need to use willpower in order to change this. And through having more willpower or more self-control, I'll get to all of a sudden like make the habits I want to make or change my life in the way that I want to change. And this is exactly something that I want to address or help you or bring you guys with me in this new journey of moving from willpower into systems. So how can we understand willpower? So willpower is kind of this ability to control oneself. It uses a lot of neural resources in your prefrontal cortex, and it's a limited resource. So let me say that again. It's a limited resource, which means that throughout time, when you use it within your day, it's going to deplete. It will recharge, but within a day, it depletes. And yet the irony of all of this is that most people's association to the word of procrastination, or when you think of starting or stopping a habit, a negative habit, is this idea of I need to have a lot of self control, and once I have this self control in, I can do whatever I want to do, which is true to an extent, but because willpower, I'm going to read a quote here by Charles Duhigg, who is the author of The Power of Habit. Willpower in itself isn't just a skill, it's like a muscle. And these muscles, although they can get stronger, it gets more tired also throughout the day the more that we use it. And when we have low to almost no willpower left within a day, all of a sudden, when we need to make the decisions that matter, all of a sudden we can't anymore. And we find ourselves more susceptible to these moments of procrastination. And this is why I want to introduce you guys now to a movement towards systems. So these two, willpower and systems, we can think about them as mindsets. So the willpower mindset, I would like to give it the maybe the metaphor or the image of a caveman running towards an attempt to start habits, and he just keeps whacking the habits. Systems is just a little bit of it's this approach of a mindset of resources. So knowing that you only have limited willpower within a day, the question is kind of now, what do you really need your willpower for? And how can we save more willpower? So the systems mindset looks at how can we make our routines, our structures in such a way that we reduce the willpower needed to get started. I think a commonality to understanding willpower, a commonality to understanding procrastination as well is this idea of it's hard to get started. That once you start, it's fine. But that it's that one big slope of having to start that's always a problem. And it's within that slope where all this friction of the willpower, of needing willpower exists. So through the systems mindset, and when we design or craft routines that don't need a lot of willpower, then we get to influence and shape the context around us, the environment around us to our benefit. So it's kind of moving from this caveman to maybe this architect of success and productivity. And I think everyone that's familiar with habits, we all go to our main idol of the world, aside from like Ali Abdaal, of James Clear, who is the author of Atomic Habits. And his quote goes, "Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress." It's the systems that allow us to be consistent, to make day-to-day progress, and to really make a habit stick. So if you're not convinced yet, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's the fascinating part about moving into a systems mindset. So here, there was a study done within the book of Atomic Habits by James Clear that talked about how when scientists analyzed people who appear to have more self-control or more of that willpower versus people who were struggling, it showed that the disciplined people aren't necessarily more disciplined or have more willpower, have more self-control than we do. It's just that they structure their life in such a way that they don't need this heroic level of willpower. And if you think about it, if somehow we get to minimize willpower in our lives to do the certain things, then we don't have to go through that slope of struggling to get ourselves starting to do something. And we can eventually become into these people that we admire, or these productivity gurus that we want to become in the future. So another case study that I would like to talk about is a book that I read recently about memory called Moonwalking with Einstein. And it talked about how when we think about, okay, what's a game or what's a activity that is most recognized for, like, if I want to think about, okay, what's a brain game? What's an IQ game? And maybe some of you guys do think as well with me about chess. And it showed here how the chess grandmasters, which are they're the highest level chess players, when they took an IQ test, they had more or less the same level of IQ as us regular individuals. And what separates them is that they used specific ways of thinking or specific neural pathways that they've built over the years and years and years to the point where they don't need to use anymore any willpower. So to explain what I just said, we can look at the experience of driving a car. So here we have Fred. Fred is our average human being, our average layman, the man that procrastinates time to time. He is our hero. And we have Charles here. Charles is that maybe that one person that is too good for us and seemingly has everything figured out. So we'll compare Charles and Fred in the level of driving. So Fred here, he's new to driving. When he drives, he holds his steering wheel a bit tightly. He looks at the side mirrors. He adjusts constantly his foot to go on the brake and the pedal. 'Cause he's unsure. And after he drives, he's just very tired. All of this is still new to him. He's learning a lot about it, and it's because his brain does not have the neural connections yet, or the strength of those synapsal connections. It takes a lot of energy from him. But here we have Charles, our our idol of the world. He is a experienced driver, whether he's conscious of it or not conscious. Maybe he's had that practice of really driving over time to the point that when he drives, he sips on milk tea and he is calling his best friend over the phone at the same time he's solving a math problem. And it's this experience in driving a car. I'm sure many of you guys can relate that once you get used to it, you don't even think about it at all. There's no willpower used in the activity. And when we look about it in this way, we can see it as habits. Habits are our brain's way of putting pieces of information together that it falls under one quick motion that we don't even need to think about anymore. So in the example I gave a while ago, it's like Fred here. Fred has to think about holding the steering wheel, looking at the side mirror, and pressing the pedal. Versus maybe Charles a while ago, where all of it he just doesn't even think about it anymore. And the more that we practice certain thoughts, certain actions, or certain behaviors, the stronger the neural connections will happen in our brains, and the easier that will take, and the less willpower. And I think that's the beauty of everything. So I just want to end this section by reading a quote by a psychologist named Diane Ware, when she talks about how when the brain cells communicate frequently, the connection between them gets stronger. And the messages travel faster within the same pathway of the brain over and over to the point that these behaviors become automatic. And you can think about it like reading, driving, riding a bike, all these things that used to really where we used to struggle at first. Maybe now when you try it, you don't even need to think about it anymore. And I think that's what's so inspiring about all this information. That it's not necessarily I'm an average person versus a genius. What the genius is doing differently, most probably, there will always be outliers, of course, but these people that we look up to that make it seem like it's so easy, the only difference is, consciously or unconsciously, they have systems where they've practiced certain behaviors so much that when they need to do something, they don't even need to think about it. Then no willpower is spent. When they want to study, they study. Then when they want to learn a specific concept, it's done. No friction at all. And that leaves them willpower to do other things that are important to them in their lives. So at this point, I just want to have a quick learning check with you all. And this is and then I just want to go with two simple questions. So number one, it's what's making sense so far? And number two, it's what habit would you like to create? Uh, feel free to annotate it here in the screen, or type it out here on the chat, like what's making sense for you so far. Or if you want to practice that vulnerability and courage as mentioned a while ago, please feel free to unmute yourselves and share what's making sense. Okay, I will give it 3 seconds, and then I will call a lovely individual to share their learning.
I can share, Chewy.
Okay, sure. Go
Hey,
ahead.
so the most striking to me so far in the workshop is that yung quote that procrastination is not laziness, but it is fear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it also resonated with what I've been watching a lot with like Thomas Frank, Ali Abdal, those kind of people. Na parang there's a certain reason why you're procrastinating. It's not just because you don't want to do things, just because there's something that's nagging you, like really making you apprehensive or like fearful to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I really appreciated that because it says that it's something that you can really work on. It's something that you have to address more.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah, so the habit. Speaking of what I'm fearful of is not keeping track of my life, because especially now in quarantine, medyo the days seem a bit hazy and everything just bleeds into each other. So I want to try and journal more, and I want to keep track of like the memories day to day, ganon ganon. So
Yeah.
the habit that I've been wanting to start ever since January was journaling talaga. But then over time now, and it's March already, there are like weeks that I've missed, and
Yeah.
I want to start, pero it's like I don't know. There's something keeping me from taking that notebook and just writing down my thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you, Raf. Thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing your what you appreciated. It's very true that uh, that's like really one of the main things that I want to get out, which is you guys aren't lazy. The fact that you think about it so hard that you drain yourself to the point of maybe coming to a workshop like this only shows how much you want to improve. You actually want to do the things that you want to do and not like get sidetracked by all of a sudden by videos or some fear. And second thing is that you guys are hardworking. Please do them. The fact that it's on your brain, the fact that you're thinking about it means you want to do it. It doesn't mean that there's a lack of action that the willingness to think about it and worry over it doesn't exist. So also what I liked about what Raf was saying was how this idea that he wants to journal and journaling comes from this desire to keep a track of of his life. So I love that's a wonderful habit, and that's also a habit I did struggle with it myself before. So how about the rest? I let me just read a couple of responses here in the chat. I see also here how Lara is learning how productivity is not about willpower but about systems. Yes, and about taking the time to batch a habit. Okay. I'm also seeing how Dominic is learning about willpower is limited and it's not a personal shortcoming. I hope you take that to heart. It really isn't. You guys are putting in the work. How about the rest? We have a couple of minutes still, and I'd love to hear some of your voices to get to know you guys also. What else is making sense so far? Okay, Jester. I like how there's a cycle and we get to pinpoint how to control things when we can't control things, such as the routine. Yeah. Jester, would it be possible for me to hear also what else is making sense for you? Hello. Okay. Is there any brave soul that would like to share? Any appreciations or any insights are really appreciated. All right. So I think I will share. Oh, okay. Jester, take your time. While waiting, I will share also some habits that I'm personally struggling with. I don't want to seem like I know what I'm just because I talk about this topic that everything's clear for me. One habit I'm personally trying to do is to what I call my checkout, which is I try to close my day by kind of having a quick review of what did I do in the day, how did I feel, and what are some story-worthy moments within my day. And it's been quite a struggle, TBH, but it's all part of the journey of making habits. So go ahead, Jester. Okay, it's all right. Would anyone else maybe like to share? We have space for just one last person. Okay, uh I see one of my friends, Earl. Would you like to care? Would you care to share, Earl? Maybe what's making sense for you so far?
Oh, hello. I I watch yung YouTube videos din kasi for productivity. So, um, a lot of these stuff um are kind of familiar for me na.
Yeah.
But one new thing that I learned for this, like from what you said earlier, was the perspective of viewing habits as energy savers. Like that one really parang clicked for me because like it gets you it makes everything natural and normal. Nah, you don't have to think about it na. So you can focus your stuff on new things or on things that are more important to you. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, a habit is, if you guys are still familiar with chunking, chunking is like the process of the brain where we connect different ideas into one bigger chunk. So it takes up less energy. That's exactly like how driving in itself, from multiple stimuli to just one fluid motion of driving. That's exactly what the habit does. And thank you, Earl, for sharing that, and for also sharing that that this is a familiar concept to you. I'm glad people know more about this idea of systems. So I will just be clearing the screen now, and don't worry, we have time also for if you guys do have questions, but you're wanting to wait later, we have a Q&A portion as well. So moving on, I want to talk about now the idea of participating in the arena. So what do I mean by participating in the arena? I'll be quoting once again one of my favorite authors, Brene Brown. It's to create something that has never existed before. There is nothing more vulnerable than that. This is exactly the journey that you guys will all be going through or are going through at this very moment. This desire to create, this desire to make your life better and more productive for meaning, for the things that matter in your life. And true enough, it is a vulnerable journey, and you will need to be that, have that honesty to where you are before engaging into this, participating in this arena. So to start it off, we have our second part, which is the concept of what makes a good system. So coming once again from the systems mindset, what's very good about it is there's this shift from looking at the product and moving into the process. I didn't get to mention it a while ago, but I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with the Pomodoro. What makes the Pomodoro so successful is that instead of looking at, I need to finish a research paper or I need to finish my thesis today, the Pomodoro technique allows us to go like, okay, I'll work on 25 minutes of the thesis, which is looking at what can I do within a concrete time within the process so that at the end I can finish the product. What the tendency of individuals are, when we give ourselves these big tasks and we just look at the task in itself, it results in us having that fear stimuli, that experience of, oh no, this is too much for me. Oh no, I don't know if I can do it. And then that causes the struggle and the usage of the willpower. But when we get to focus on having a systems mindset, which makes us look at the process, we focus on the day-to-day journey rather than the whole outcome. And it's a process of automating things that will minimize the willpower needed as a whole. And we can mainly ask ourselves the question, what are the processes within my day that take up the most willpower? And what are these processes that I can optimize? Whether it's writing your tasks for the day, maybe you can do it the night before, or specifying what you will actually study within what time period, etc. So how do these systems benefit us? I think beautifully mentioned by Earl a while ago was how, if you think about each of these things, studying, night routine, gym time, and my own personal example of coaching, each of them, possibly if they were all a source of procrastination, all of them could take so much willpower. But if we were to think of them as if all of them were solidified habits that don't produce any willpower at all, then we arrive at the point where all of these things happen on a consistent daily basis, and we have the space and capacity to spend that willpower towards things that we want to be working on consciously. So a good system is two things. Number one, it's reliable, and number two, it's effortless. And what are we, when I say reliable and effortless, let me explain it now. So, reliable. Here, another quote by Brene Brown, which goes, "We risk missing out on joy when we get too busy chasing down the extraordinary." So I put this here because if you're similar to me, hopefully not. When we think of creating things, maybe there's this mindset of making it bombastic in a way that maybe it's like it's the New Year's and you're like, okay, I need to make the perfect habit that will change my year and just revolutionize everything I'm gonna do. And it's the sense of making things so grand, so extraordinary that when we don't get to reach that standard of perfectionism or that standard, that high standard, we get demotivated. And all of a sudden it becomes something into that we just want to avoid because, oh, okay, maybe I can't reach what I really want to reach. And that's the first jumping point that I like to go off by talking about a good system. When I say reliable, it's simple. And when we say simple, it's having this mindset of what is the baseline form of this habit that I can create that will take up no willpower. The idea here is to start this habit slowly but surely so that we can build those neural connections in our brain so it gets stronger and stronger. So I know some of you guys might be able to maybe carry a 30-pound dumbbell, but here we're looking at maybe let's carry a 5-pound dumbbell daily. Maybe it's just one rep. Second is personalized. And when I say personalized, I'm talking about how there are different ways people suggest how to do a habit or when, where, how they suggest it. But I think just whatever works for you is a way that also will make it most reliable for you. So I'll talk about the example later. And lastly, it's the idea of progress and not perfection. So to give examples for these, it's simplicity. If we're talking about the idea of doing push-ups, maybe it's I'll do a push-up one time a day. And it's this one push-up a day that is so impossible to fail that you have no reason not to do it. And yet, if you don't do it, it's also okay. Like, don't be too hard on yourselves. Second is personalized. So if you want to do push-up, that one push-up at 1 a.m. in your bathroom, then so be it. Whatever place works for you best, that's really what's going to work best. And lastly, it's this idea of progress and not perfection. When we in the journey of creating habits, there's a tendency to look at, oh, I told myself I'll do a push-up 5 times in a week. And then you go like, ah, shit, I didn't hit the 5 times in a week. And because we didn't hit the 5 times, you get demotivated. The way that a system is reliable is looking at where do we start from? This idea of, okay, I started from one push-up a day, and now I'm doing 2 push-ups. It might be not that consistent, but it's 2 push-ups. That's 2 times already the amount of progress that I had versus before. So next is systems are effortless. And when we talk about effortless, we talk about a couple of things. Number one is frictionless. Number two is human proofing. And lastly, there is effort. When we say frictionless, this is the whole idea of how can we design the system in such a way that no willpower is needed. That's the goal. Obviously, like there will be willpower needed to start the thing, and that's fine. But it's this idea of removing these blockages throughout the day that can possibly make us use those willpower. So next is also human proofing. I'll give an example for each of this later, so don't worry. Human proofing is when we think about the future, there's this tendency of, okay, bahala na my future self, and my future self will be able to handle the things. But human proofing in itself is to talk about how we're not machines, and there will be times where our body falls into temptations to do other things. So when we think about human proofing, we're thinking about how can we design a system in such a way that it's so specific, who, what, where, when, how, why, is clear to us. And that when our future self has to do that thing that we planned, whether that's one push-up, it's all set up and no willpower is needed. And lastly, I want to talk about effort in this effortless paradigm of a system, because I think if when we do see our idols talk about effort, I mean when they talk about their habits or their routines, it's most probably at its perfect form already, which means that they've gone through the struggle of failing so many times that they know what works for them. And I just want to like demystify the idea that you can get a habit in one go. The creation of the habit or stopping a habit is a continuous process of striving away from where you want to be going to coming back to that process. And it takes a lot of effort. And it takes the effort also to allow yourself to make those mistakes. That at the end we can actually come up with a system that works for us. So these are a couple of questions that I just want to share with you that you can use as a guidance to think about these three aspects. So frictionless is number one. What are the moments of friction during in my habits? So do I have to prepare my gym clothes? Do I need to prepare my water bottle and all these things? And how can I reduce these moments of friction? So moving into how can I prepare my bag the night before? How can I prepare my water? So that when I think of the next day, when I'm going to go to the gym, I just have to get these things and go. Next is human proofing. How can I make my routine as clear and specific as possible? So the clearer your ideas are, the clearer your habits, the clearer the thing that you want to be doing, the faster you'll be able to do it as well. The less willpower is needed. So for an example of procrastination as a fear trigger, it's a fear trigger because sometimes when you want to do the things that you want to do, maybe it's not clear to you. Maybe you tell yourself, I want to work on project A, but maybe you haven't specified yet. Under project A, today I need to do team meeting A, design thinking B, or ideating C. And because we don't know that, we just see it as the one chunk of project A. And that's terrifying. So the human proof is just to make it as clear as possible what is going to be done at when and where and how and why. And lastly, this effort, which is having that awareness of how do I usually respond when I don't get to accomplish the habit or routine. Because it's a process of picking yourself up again and again and again until these neural connections in your brain are so fixed that it's easier for you to do. And at this point, I will just be at I want you guys to, I know I shared a lot. For those who are new to all of this, I know it's a lot, but for those who are fairly familiar with the systems mindset already and productivity, good. Let's use this time together now to really think about what are the habits we want to create and maybe have some preliminary ideas of the systems that we want to craft. So I hopefully they did send the worksheet in the chat. They'll send in the email, but if they could send the worksheet again in the chat, that would be great. And what I want all of you guys to do now is I'll be giving you guys 10 minutes to go to a breakout room and to really ideate or at least just discuss with your fellow breakout room people what's making sense so far, what habits you want to create, and to think about this idea of making that reliable and effortless system. So if there are no questions, I'll be sending you guys to the breakout room. For the rest rolling in, I'll just asking people if they could share maybe what was the discussion in their room, and then what did you guys talk about? What did you realize? Apologize to whoever I'm gonna cold call, but I see a Ashley Lim. Can I just hear from you? Just share with me anything that you guys were talking about in the room.
So in my room, we talked about the habits we wanted to make, and then yeah, we actually just got to talk. We didn't get to start on the worksheet yet, but then it's okay. I guess it's
Yeah.
also nice because somehow it's like accountability to each other, like trying some of your goals.
Exactly. And firstly, no expectations the one for you guys to finish the worksheet. It's long. It really is long. Second, it's true when we do work with others and when we have accountability partners, it really does solidify um, our our creation of habits. How about the rest? What did you guys discuss, or what was emerging from your breakout rooms?
I think I can go next.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so in our breakout room, most of us actually, we have no hard deadlines for our schoolwork. So our problem was mostly that we cram a lot and we end up doing them the week before the hard deadline, even though we could have done them the whole semester, kind of stuff. And yeah, the ways to make it more reliable and more effortless was probably setting a schedule and deciding to just take maybe one requirement off every week, or maybe 25 minutes every day on this requirement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Especially as college students, I think we're bombarded with so much time, and when we get to set like a fixed routine of when I'm gonna study, that kind of saves up all the energy. So thank you, Asa, for sharing. Maybe one last person to share, if possible.
Actually, I can share what happened in my room.
Sure, sure.
Yes, so I was with two other people and we were on the same page in terms of wanting to build studying habits to study regularly, similar to what Ace mentioned earlier. Also a habit of exercising regularly and reading, meditating, and one of us also mentioned spending to have more time for their dogs. So yeah, and the purposes of these habits were so that we like kind of related to what you were mentioning earlier, so we have less friction with what we do and don't have to burn out, and have a system to follow so that this it takes less energy to be able to do this to reach your goals.
I really like no the time for the dogs. I do agree that I think when we think about habits, which I'll also be going into later, there's a lot of notion of it relating to academics or to work. But there are habits definitely in other aspects of our lives. And because this is really a workshop where I'm not claiming to be an expert here. I also want to show that I'm a fellow person in the struggle of things. This was one of my own attempts to create habits for myself in this routine last year. And as you can notice here, uh, it was a little bit bloody. So I wanted to create a couple of habits and it turned into a routine within my day. So I want to start out in the morning of really journaling. Then after journaling, get to meditate. Then hopefully like exercise a couple of times within the week. I also want to learn something new every day. And lastly, I want to like track what emotions I was feeling different times in the day. And as you can see, it was a really bloody process. There's really a lot of like excess there. And if you notice on the right, it says like -3, -4, which is me kind of counting like, oh, how many times did I not do this habit? But it's also about how we pick ourselves up after doing these habits or trying to create it. Because there's, once again, it's the process of creating a habit is bloody and it's not it's not a one time I'll get it perfect type of thing. Which moves me into I think another point I want to make by one of my favorite authors once again, Brené Brown, which is the idea of showing up when you're creating something that you've never created before, and that's gonna take vulnerability. And when you have this vulnerability and everything's set up, all you need to do is kind of show up, not for other people, but for yourself. To do that one push-up a day, so that eventually it becomes so fixed in your brain that you can easily, without any willpower needed, get to do this habit that you want to be doing. So I will be talking about now. I think the the concepts a while ago, I think are familiar to people who are in the productivity sphere, but the next set of concepts are really just my own. And I want to be talking about energy and emotions. So I think I call it a new way of looking at productivity because somehow when I hear productivity, it gets associated with things like hustle culture or um, work or school because that's like technically like your work within college. And it's always about like how can I just do more, do more, do more. And there's this sense of mechanicalness. But I also believe that because we're human beings, when we look at productivity, naturally emotion and energy have to come into things. But naturally we don't take into consideration. And it's a very strong belief of mine that to plan without taking into consideration your energy and emotions throughout your day is setting yourself up for disappointment or at worst failure. So what I know the words like whoa, disappointment, failure. It's a lot. It's very harsh. But if we actually think of the expectations we put on ourselves on a daily basis, what is that? So let's say I want to do 5 things tomorrow. And realistically, because of maybe I have other events tomorrow, or all of a sudden I get a migraine or whatnot, or if I finish a task, I feel drained and that willpower is a little bit low. Realistically, what we only get to do 2 or 3 things. And after doing those 2 to 3 things, in comparison to 5 things that we want to be doing, that's just such a far leap. And there's this sense of like beating ourselves up for not being able to reach that standard. And I believe that this happens reached because we don't take into consideration how we plan our day in terms of energy and emotion. And I also want to talk about the concept of what I think is what I call re-energizing, which is, for example, sometimes maybe our schedules look a little bit like the one in the middle. Like work for my career goals, and it's like 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Like I constantly have to be productive. But to expect ourselves to be that productive and that emotionally stable and energy and stable in terms of energy is unrealistic. Most probably we only get to do half or even less of the things that we initially want to do. And this is where I think meditation inspiration comes in. I'm taking a program now called the Positive Quotient Program for coaches, and it focuses on seeing how positive psychology can play into a part of uh, getting ourselves more re-energized throughout the day, and at the same time build on our strengths and lessen the inner critic. But that's a whole different topic. Um, and what I notice is that through meditation or even acts that bring your thinking to the present allows for that mental break. And when we have that mental break, even though if it's in short bursts, that allows us to slowly regain our energy for the next task that we need to be doing. So I highly advise if you guys want to try meditation. I'm sure some of you guys do maybe 5 minutes meditation or even longer. What I've been doing recently is I've been meditating in bursts. So I meditate 3 to 4 times in a day, and that's 2 to 3 minutes or sometimes even 5 minutes. And I noticed that having these pockets of of moments to re-energize myself throughout the day is how can I keep myself it allows me to keep myself consistent when I show up to the different things I want to show up for, whether that's a meeting or a task I need to be doing. Maybe if you're not into meditation, look for moments of inspiration. Like what activities give you life? Whether that's drawing, writing, or all these other things that can take your brain off the task that you're doing at this moment and give you that sense of, okay, I'm excited and energized feeling to do the thing that inspires you. And when you insert these pockets of rest within your day, then you can maintain that sense of energy, maybe that high expectation that you hope to be able to do 5 tasks within a day. In short, rest. Rest and put yourselves in the present. Next, I also want to talk about motivation styles. So I have a favorite YouTuber. His name is Dr. K. He's a psychiatrist, and his YouTube handle is Healthy Gamer GG. He's a psychiatrist that talks a lot about mental health and also talks about mental health specifically to our generation. So when we talk about motivation styles, I want you to think about it like body types. So this is a concept that I'm borrowing from Dr. K. I think when we think about psychology or understanding human behavior, what we try to do is, because human behavior is it's a construct, it's abstract. We try to measure different behaviors, and then we get the mean or the average of those behaviors, and we say that, okay, because this is the mean, this is how an average human being behaves. Just to give an example, let's say that, for example, the WHO of the World Health Organization, let's say that they recommend an average calorie of 2,000. For them to get to 2,000, it could have been a process of person A. They looked at person A who needed 1,600 calories, person B who needed 2,000 calories, and person C who needed 2,400 calories. And when they got the average of all these behaviors, they're like, okay, an average human being needs 2,000. But the problem with this is that we're not taking into consideration how about the outliers, how about the people that deviate from the norm, and what will happen to their calorie intake, because obviously 1,600 and 2,400, that both of them will either be too much or too little in comparison to the 2,000. So how does it relate to motivation styles? There's this Eastern practice called Ayurveda. I'm not asking you to believe in Ayurveda, but at least I want you to look at, when we think about motivation, there's this idea that a motivated person is a person that can start a task and keep on running. So let's call him the protagonist. And yet, that in itself is an estimation of human behavior, of how we think motivation works. But that's not true. According to Ayurveda, when you have your there are different body types. So you can either correspond to earth, fire, wind. Once again, I'm not asking you to believe in Ayurveda. What I'm asking is the principle of, with the different body types or different motivation styles, there are also different ways of how you get yourself motivated and how consistent your motivation is throughout your day. So first we have, let's look at the middle first. First we have the fire or pita, which is our protagonist. So when we think of the vanilla motivated person. This is what we think about. Yet there are two other styles of motivation, which might actually be more fitting to how you actually work. So on the left we have Earth or Kappa, which is, you can imagine it's like a car. It's slow acceleration, but once the acceleration is in, it's high top speed. So maybe it takes you a while to get to warm up to start working. But once you've warmed up and once you're there, nothing can stop you. And next is the wind or the vata, which is you're quick to get inspired and you're quick to lose inspiration, but you're quick to get inspired again for something else. So I personally, I'm a wind, I'm a vata, and understanding, or maybe if you want to take the test, or even if something associates to you a little bit more, having this different understandings of motivation will allow us to maybe schedule our day in such a way that best fits our motivation energy. And once we know that, we better optimize our day as well. And I want to talk about the last topic, which I call meaningful productivity. And when we talk about meaningful productivity, I like to show you one slide. So this one slide are the top 5 regrets of people about to die on their deathbeds. So number 1, it's I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 2, it's I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself. 3, I wish I'd let myself be happier. 4, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. And 5, I wish I'd kept in touch with my friends. Now that we're all beefed up and we know systems and we know energy and other things, the point of being productive is kind of to save time. And now that we have all this time, I ask you the question, what is it all for? I think what society and the academic structure teaches us is that we're always supposed to be thinking about the next thing that we're supposed to be doing. So if we're grade school, we think about how can we get into, let's say you apply to different high school, and then once you're in high school, it's like, okay, what college will I be going to? What course will I be doing? And once you're in college, it's like, okay, what profession will I be doing? And then once you're in the profession, once you're in the adulting world, you're just lost. Semi joke, but we're just so acquainted to constantly be thinking about what we want to be doing and what we want to be achieving. But when do we ever stop to think about who we would like to be in this process of moving forward? In this very moment right now, or even in the future, what is that type of person that you want to become into? And that's why I want to talk about the idea of personal productivity, which is life is really just more about all the pressure we put on ourselves to succeed on aspects of career, academics, getting a good job, finances, and other things. And when we move our idea of productivity to also seeing what are the goals that I have in other aspects of my life, then we can have a more holistic type of being. And with that, I just want to talk about the buckets of life. So this is a little bit less of productivity, but a little bit more of life planning now, which is the concept of what are the main areas of my life. So maybe if until now, maybe if you're new to the whole productivity sphere and maybe you intended to use it for a lot of academics, I would actually challenge you to think about as well. What are the other aspects in your life that, since you have time from all this productivity effort, what are the other areas in your life that you can water and grow? So personally, these are my own buckets. So I have career and finances, I have passion and purpose, I have health and well-being, and I have relationships. And through watering each of these different parts of my life, I get to, I guess, just be a more human, holistic person. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's really, life isn't just working. Life isn't um, having career goals and achieving the career goals. Because if I strip away the career from your life, who are you? And if maybe you're not yet convinced, maybe you're like, right now, let me just start with the career, and that's okay. But let me also provide a convincing argument to why it would be beneficial to look at other aspects of your life. So we call that when we learn things, there's two types of thinking. So one is focused thinking, and the other one's called diffuse thinking. Focused thinking, you kind of think about it like when you're learning a new subject, let's say psychology. and you're absorbing the concepts. This active usage of your mind to concentrate on the concepts and to absorb and to make the connections in your brain. That is the focused thinking. That's more associated with left brain thinking. But when we think about diffuse thinking are the moments of maybe when you're not concentrating on on the topic anymore, and you let your mind kind of wander. Maybe you're biking, maybe you're cooking, etc. Maybe you're taking a shower, and then all of a sudden you have a eureka moment. That's because your brain was taking time to absorb the concepts and digest what it was actually learning. And it's through having these moments of when we're not actively thinking about something that our brain gets to make the neural connections between different concepts in our brain, in our lives. And the more that we build ourselves in other aspects of our lives, whether it may be different interests, say that you want to learn the piano, say that you want to learn a different language, the more chunks of ideas your brain has to connect to when it's in this diffuse thinking. And the power of this is that so in short, if you build on your passion, your purpose, your health and well-being, your relationships, and you take time to focus on these things, aside from your career, when you're doing all these other things, your brain will easily digest the information and try to make connections of how can you make that creative solution. So here in diffuse thinking, it's also more associated with right brain thinking, so more of creative, big picture thinking. And at this point, I just want to take the time to share a couple of key points, which are, number one, we talked a lot about willpower and systems. And it's this idea of shifting from the mindset of using willpower to a systems mindset, which looks at resources that will allow us to conserve our energy and focus on what really matters. Because willpower, once again, is a limited resource that depletes throughout our usage. Second is think human, be human. What I mean by this is that I think we put high expectations on ourselves to achieve certain things. Like we want to do 5 tasks within a day. But when we think about the 5 tasks, that's as if you're in the best state in the world and everything ideally goes to plan. But given human nature, things will fuck up somehow. You will get a migraine somehow, or suddenly your family will ask you to do a chore. And these are things out of your control. And to think human and be human is to take into consideration how's your energy level going to be like, how are your emotions throughout the day, and then to make active activities as well to allow yourself to recharge. And lastly is to be meaningfully productive is to build upon what really matters in life. So we be productive to save time, and we save time to give it to things that really matter, not just the work. And I want to end with a quote that might not make sense immediately, but give me a second. So this is a book I read this year. It's one of really highly recommended by Goodreads. It's called Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. And the quote goes, "We need to allow ourselves to we need to be allowed to convince ourselves that we're more than the mistakes we made yesterday. That we are all of our choices to all of our tomorrows." And this is coming from the idea that maybe we define ourselves at the current moment of what we've done in the past, what we've achieved. And yet, I think the potential and the beauty of everything I shared today is that if we just put in the time, we put in the systems, we put in the practice, we can become into the people that we want to become. Maybe it won't be those geniuses that will be featured in a newspaper, but it doesn't mean that we can't be competent or be good at a certain skill that we'd like to develop in the future. Hence, we are all of our tomorrows as well. So these are my sources. From a lot of different productivity books, How We Learn, Atomic Habits, Power of Habit, some Coursera courses, and jokingly saying at the bottom my psych class now because I'm taking Masters in Counseling Psychology. So those are my sources. And if you'd like to, before, I think I have 2 minutes left before Q&A. And I just also want to introduce, so right now I'm a transformational life and learning coach, which means that I really do specialize in productivity. And I want to work with people on crafting how can I best help them design the habits and productive life that they want to achieve. So these are my contact details. In case you want to work with me, I'm starting in a couple of weeks a pay what you value system, which is really, I have some hypothetical frameworks I like to be trying with a couple of people, and I'm looking for people to do it with. And if you're interested in that system, then just message me. Feel free to reach out. No worry, I'm very friendly. We can talk about it. And the pay what you value system is really, if you deem this as worthless, then don't give me anything. It's free. But if you think it's valuable and you think it helped you out, then give what you feel is the value. Also, lastly, so once again, I'm a co-founder of an organization called It's What Really Matters, and we create space for conversation. So I just also want to take a few moments to plug a workshop that we're currently doing now. So kindly ignore the dates at the bottom. But it's called On Narratives, Rediscovering Your Story. And we know that 2020 was really a place of where people got lost. A lot of timelines were destroyed and people kind of lost themselves. And we want to create a space where people can authentically have those conversations of being feeling lost and come together in the commonality of rediscovering who they want to be. So this workshop series just hopes to achieve three things. It's reconnect to your authentic self, build uh, what are the ways that we can move forward authentically, and the storytell. How can you really live out this new life? So why I'm showing this to all of you guys is that we have our batch 2 right now. We have around 35 participants, but we're not sure if we're going to roll a third batch. So in case you guys are interested, all you have to do is just send me a message so we can get kind of like a temp check to see if people are interested, then we'll launch something. We'll launch a third batch. So if you have any questions to that, you can also, once again, message me in any of these details over here. Yeah. So at this point, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Chewy will be sharing screen for the questions. So yeah.
Sure. Okay, I think wait, it's okay. Let me just take 1 minute actually. Since I went a little bit under time, so that means I have time to talk about what I want to geek about. So I know a lot of the things I was talking about were theory. So these are just like things to spoon feed, like directly productivity tools. So in case you're interested, so number one, if you guys are familiar with Ali Abdal, he really talks about Alfred. So Alfred is an intelligence spotlight. So it's all about how can I search in my laptop things quicker and open things faster and save off the minutes. So if you're interested about that, feel free to talk about that to me as well. Second is bartender. So I'm sure if for those people who are using Mac, you have a lot of icons on top. Bartender allows you to organize it and show the apps you really just want to use. Third is Cube Serve, which shows the how productive were you within a day. It automatically tracks your activity usage. So whether that's using Zoom, you're going to visiting a certain website, etc. It's highly addictive and could be toxic at times, but it's fun. Fourth is Notion, which knowledge management. I'm sure many of you guys use. Fifth, fantastical, having a smart calendar to allow you to input things quicker, all about the minutes that you're saving. And lastly, super duper useful for students, please download or buy Text Sniper, which is, if you guys are familiar with screenshotting, whether in the Mac or in the Windows, Text Sniper allows you to screenshot any text from any location, and it's gonna come into your copy. It's gonna go into your copy portion. So imagine you can just screenshot your teacher's text, and that's all gonna come into a copy, and then you can just paste it. So much simpler, so much simpler. And that's it. Okay, back to you guys for the Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Chewy. So yeah, we will share screen. Hold on.
Now, thank you guys, and thank you, Chewy, for your talk. And I'm sure the audience also found it enjoyable and insightful. So now we have a few questions for our speaker. Okay, so for the first question, do you think there really is such a thing as productively procrastinating?
In the so I can follow in the ways of the Athenian spirit. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, for example, if you're gonna clean your room, then you're technically doing something. Hooray, good for you. But I would also say no, because while you're doing this thing that gives you that temporary relief, it's always in your back of your mind that I'm supposed to be doing something else. And that's like a slow type of torture that you're gonna put yourself to. And even if you finish that task that makes you productive, like you clean your room, okay, at the end of the day, what you were avoiding is still there, and that's gonna provide more pain in the long run. So yes and no.
Okay, thank you, Chewy. Now for the second question. It's a more personal question. What is your personal favorite system for time management?
I use a combination of fantastical and sometimes forest or sometimes uh, what's the name of the app? Be Focused Pro, which is a Pomodoro app. So essentially, I just like to why I like fantasticals because there's a way to smart input your um your events, so you can kind of do it without thinking that much, and it's so quick to input. And then from there, I can kind of see what my pockets are, and then I to overcome procrastination itself, I use Pomodoro. So I just focus. So I kind of focus on okay, I have to do this task for 25 minutes, and then that kind of relieves the fear and the pressure.
Okay, thank you. By the way, guys, you can still send questions, and if you guys still want to, just send them in the Slido with the link broadcasted in our chat. So for our next question, if the pearls or workplace have a bad habit, how to change or modify that habit to be more productive?
Oh. Okay, peers. If peers have a workplace a bad habit, then I think as much as we'd like to change other people or like the environment, what we most have control over, as mentioned a while ago, is our own routine. It's our own response to these things. So I think as long as you yourself are maintaining your and doing your position and keeping your routine, that's good. However, if you really want to change the environment, then there's always but it's a whole different topic already. Like um I put it in the worksheet naman where you can look at the cue and the reward, and maybe you can even guide your friend in changing their own habits or their own ways of working. So I hope that kind of answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Chewy. For the next question, it's a situational question and kind of related to the previous one. When you're busy being productive and suddenly your parents ask you to do a chore, it often breaks your momentum or flow state. How do you best deal with this?
Um, it's either you put yourself in an environment where you can't get broken in that momentum, so you go to a coffee shop or out, or you lock yourself in a room, or the way I'm handling it now is as much as like I know it's gonna break my flow state, I make my immediate response as a yes. I feel like the struggle between saying no and having like I can't do it now to the parent wastes willpower. And sometimes the when they ask to do a chore, it's just very quick. So you can even see it as maybe the chore could possibly take your mind off the thing that you're doing, and then maybe you come up with ideas there. Yeah. How do you work smart in terms of ACADS and save time? Please look up at the concepts of active recall and spaced repetition. Specifically, um, when we take down our notes, if you want to be extra daring, when we listen in class, just write questions. Don't write down notes. Trust that the notes will be with the slides that your prof has, and they'll give you the slides, or that you have the information that you want in a book. When you write down the questions, that actively forces your mind to think about the concept instead of like mindlessly copying the concepts. Yeah. We talked about a system, but what can be created regarding system to assess these habits? Um, so I believe that life is a journey that we do in teams. So feedback mechanisms, definitely you can have a peer support to do this. There's a I in the worksheet I recommended a free app called Habit Share. Imagine it like social media, imagine like Facebook, but you can see each other when they checked off a habit. Super duper useful. Um, but also you can have your own personal ways of tracking. So as you saw, it's I used my own notebook and other things. What do you think is the limit of things you can handle? How much ideally should one have on their plate? Really depends. Really does depend. Um, it's I don't think I can give an answer to this. Like really depends on your motivation style. Depends on what you have within the day. All these factors. Are you in a non-interruptible environment, etc. Do I track my progress and things? Yes, I do. So I will show the app that I was referring to here. So this is called habit share, and you can it's like a social it's like social media, and you can befriend people, and then when you see that they didn't like do a habit, you're like, ha, they didn't do it today. Um, would you recommend pressuring yourself to achieve more? No. Um, Pressuring yourself is an idea of that's kind of willpower. But when push comes to shove, sometimes we really have no choice. But ideally, we set up the systems where we don't need to pressure ourselves, and we can break it up to smaller tasks so we can do it over time. How to invite people to be more productive? I know, that's such a good question. Uh, some people it really isn't for them. Like I think people like us, maybe the type A people, we enjoy like having this much control and feeling like we're doing a lot. But some people just like go with the flow. And I think that's the beauty of their own lives because they're so chill yet relaxed. What's the name of the psychiatrist? YouTuber Dr. K. He's the best. The name of the YouTube. Let me type it. Um, I think it's called Healthy Gamer GG. He specializes on giving psych concepts to our generation, and he talks to different Twitch streamers. But the conversations, I swear to you, it's as if you're it's as if you're flying the wall on a therapy session, and it's so useful, so great in information. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Notion and bullet journaling? I honestly tried to make Notion my life central, but I think there was just too much moments of friction that I decided Notion is best as my knowledge management. So I keep my notes and my book notes there also, and some reflections. Bullet journaling. I never actually really got into bullet journaling. I don't know if I personally do bullet journaling. uh, has Kite influenced my position now as life coach? Yes, it has. I came from a heavy business background, so that's ME. I also was the externals for MEA before, and I think it's moments like Kite and when I went into theater that made me realize that, um, and other facilitation moments that made me realize that I love watching people learn. I love facilitating people's growths and productivity as a whole. Yeah. As someone who has a win was, how do you structure your day? It's also I'm also the same, hard to manage energy. Um, what you do is have multiple bursts of activities that you're doing. So it could be like, one Pomodoro to work on your paper, and then on the next Pomodoro to do another task. Maybe that's like fixing your knowledge management system, and it's just keep switching it up, and you'll notice how your energy gets sustained because it's a new activity and a new way of thinking constantly. Who's my favorite productivity YouTuber? I like the humor of Ali Abdaal. I feel like I relate to him so much in the sense that, um, like I think right now he's so candid about his wife goals, and it's so funny, and I like his humor as well. He has also a lot of great tips about studying and how we can really look at studying. What's it like make living as a life coach? I find it interesting. Want to pursue a non-conventional path? Yes. Whoever you are, feel free to message me. But just to tell you about it and to introduce everyone to what life coaching is. I think when we think about life coaching, we have this perception of coach, as in basketball coach, like sir, boss. But it's not really like that because the notion of a coach or a sports coach has this idea of I have the knowledge, I will give you the knowledge. A life coach is more similar to um, those moments of when you enter into a coffee shop with a friend where both you guys come in as equals, yet you come out knowing yourself a lot better, and there's a greater awareness of what you actually want to do. um, I also incline it very similar to what therapy can create. I'm never gonna say that it can replace therapy. uh, Please do not state that that's what I said. um, what they both create beautifully are spaces to hold your thoughts without judgment and to experience your emotions, and it's that space to explore your thoughts and feelings about certain things. What's different lang is therapy is a little bit like, let me explore the past with you so I can better understand the present so that we can move forward. Life coaching is a little bit now, it's a little bit like, what are you experiencing? What are you concerned with at the current moment? And what makes you concerned about it? And then for you to become aware of what you're really concerned with. Because um, I think we think that we know what our problem is. But when we talk to a friend, we realize, oh, it was so simple pala. Because in truth, we don't actually see our whole thought process. And it takes another person to reflect back and ask good questions that help us see it. Um, how are you able to accomplish things when you have personal problems to deal with? I think it's you. What's that? Think human, be human. As much as we want to get things done, if you really can't because of your emotional state, then uh, then sorry to that task or item. But I just to share with you guys also my movement of how I used to think or how I used to calm myself down was um I think in when I was more into ME and more into the business mind type of thing, I always had this mindset of um okay, will this thought matter 5 years from now? Or will this thought like parang is it something I want to give a fuck about, etc. And then I use logic to trump over my emotional state. But I've reached a point now where I recognize my emotional state as a part of me that's just telling myself that something went wrong. And when you kind of acknowledge and let yourself go through the motions of that emotion, eventually it's like imagine more it's like a crying baby. The baby will eventually stop crying and you'll reach a calmer state. I promise you. So to summarize what I just said, it's to deal with your emotions by being with it, not to reject it by using logic. And also, if you guys are interested in talking about the topic, super into well-being, super duper into well-being. What do I know about effective altruism? I would like to know more, TBH. I haven't, I think I only know more about it because of getting invited to this workshop and seeing a couple of different friends of mine that joined different organizations. So, for example, Brian and um, he used to be the CEO of a diligence cafe, I think. Do you ever experience Bristol for pizza? When- um, yes, Elmer. Yes, Elmer. Exactly. Um, yes, I do. I experience a lot of back pain. So please, fix your posture while you have the time, because or else you're gonna buy from Shopee things that straighten your back. So it's not it's like it's the worst thing ever. What kind of people do I coach? How's the experience like? Um, I've I'm proud to say I've reached 106 hours of coaching so far, and I've been coaching a lot of because I coach also my classmates, and my classmates come from different parts of the world, and they tend to be from an older demographic. So I would like to say it's a lot of executives of 30s to 40s age, but I've also been coaching. I've coached teachers as a pro bono experience, and at the same time, I've coached some of my peers, my friends in the working space. So personally, I want to target the yuppies, so 18 to maybe 33 individuals that are high achieving, but at the same time, um, perfectionism gets in the way of what they want to be doing. So that's basically the so if you feel like you fall into that category and you feel like you want more clarity with your emotions or you want to be just more productive, feel free to work with me. I'd love to see how we can work things out. How much can the place where you live affect your productivity? Completely. So flow state is so important, and if you're constantly being distracted by a family member coming in or a tasks being asked for you to do, then obviously you can't maintain focus on the thing you need to do. Have you experienced getting into barriers to forming habits, or how do you can you move it or change it? So what I shared to you today in today's workshop was the mindset of moving into systems. What I didn't tackle, which I think is very implementable, kasi is what I put in the worksheet, which is you can look at the cue, the response, or the reward, and you can influence those differently. And when you in the worksheet, I think it's the second to the last page, you'll see different steps by Charles Duhigg on how you can influence the cue, response, or the routine. What course and class am I taking for life coaching? So I'm taking a if people are considering life coaching, please talk to me. I'll share you all my knowledge, promise. I'm taking a class under Coach Masters Academy right now. They have 3 levels. One is the core training, second is the advanced level, and lastly is the class for mastery. I'm taking the advanced level right now. And at the same time, I'm doing my own self-study into positive psychology because I think I want to blend positive psychology, coaching, and hopefully counseling psychology in the future. Hence why I'm taking my master's. Woo! Um, does coaching pay well? Um, let's put it this way. I think the coaching is not yet an accepted field nor a known field here in the Philippines. It's way more known and established in the US, and it pays a lot more in the US. But the pay is pretty good. I think the problem lang is more of how do you find the clients and what type of coaching are you personally going to administer. So whoever asked the question, feel free to reach out once to me again. I can talk to you about the discoveries that kind of need to be made as you go into this journey.
Okay, and I think, yeah, that officially concludes our productivity workshop. So once again, thank you so much, Chewy, for sharing your insights on productivity. And we would like to express our gratitude with this certificate of appreciation for all your great insights and practical tips.
Thank you, so
And,
guys.
and we will be posting the recording of this workshop on our YouTube soon, and we will share Chewy's slides and the workshop's worksheet along with it. So make sure you stay tuned for our social media platforms to stay connected.
Pasensya na lang.
um, Another matter is to please fill out the evaluation form before you leave the workshop. So, and one last thing pala, can you all can you please turn on your cameras if you are comfortable, as we will now be taking a group photo.
Okay, I can take the picture.
Okay, thanks.
So okay, I'll be giving a few more seconds. Okay. Okay, 3. Okay, Isai, I can see your face. Our project head. I hope I can see your face,
No,
Isai.
sorry, my bandwidth is super low.
Oh, okay. Okay, there. We love it. Okay. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll be share screaming one more time.
Thanks, guys.
So
Thanks
yeah,
so much,
that's it, guys.
everyone.
Thank you guys for coming. And we would like to thank everyone for coming and participating in this workshop. And we wish you the best in your endeavors. And we hope to see you in our future events. So
Yeah,
yeah.
if anyone has any questions or if you just want to talk about life coaching or even just exploration, feel free to message me. I'd love to set time.
Bye everyone. Thanks for coming.